Turning the tables on Israeli Prime Minister, a former Netanyahu aide has turned driver. In what looks like an end of Netanyahu's era in Israel, far-right Yamina party leader Naftali Bennett has decided to join forces with the opposition leader Yair Lapid. Naftali has thrown his crucial support behind a unity government to unseat Benjamin Netanyahu. This would prove to be a major step towards ending the 12-year rule of the Israeli leader. It will also end the political crisis in Israel that led to 4 consecutive elections in 2 years. Warning against Netanyahu taking Israel to suicide, Yamina party chief Naftali Bennett has said there is no feasible way for the hardline right wing to assemble a right-wing majority in parliament. Now that unity government or elections are the only option, Bennett said going to additional elections would collapse the country, while a unity government would end the cycle of political deadlock.
The political crisis in Israel is unprecedented on a global scale. We can move to a 5th, 6th, 10th election to dismantle the walls of the country brick by brick until our house will collapse on us. And it's possible to stop the madness and take responsibility. There is no right-wing government. 4 rounds of elections and 2 months prove to us all that there simply is not a right-wing government to be led by Netanyahu. It's either a 5th election or a unity government.
Post the announcement, Benjamin Netanyahu lashed out at Bennett, calling the possible coalition government a danger for the security of Israel. Netanyahu has urged nationalist politicians who have joined the coalition talks not to establish what he called a leftist government.
Don't form a left-wing government. Such a government is a danger to Israel's security and future. Think about it. What will it do for Israel's deterrence? How will we look in the eyes of our enemies? What will they say in Iran? What will they say in Gaza? What will they do in Iran and in Gaza? What will they say in the halls of government in Washington?
If a new government is formed, it will be the most wide-ranging coalition ever formed in Israel. Opposition chief Yair Lapid would be allowed to put together a coalition of right-wing, centrist and leftist parties and hand Netanyahu his first election defeat since 1999. The 71-year-old has been in power consecutively since 2009 but has failed to decisively win 4 elections since 2019. He is now on trial on corruption charges that he denies. Yair Lapid, who is the head of the centrist Yesh Atid party, faces a June 2nd deadline from Israel's president to announce a new government. Now, Bennett's Yamina party, 6 seats in the 120-member parliament, will help him do so. Under a prospective power-sharing deal, Bennett would replace Netanyahu as prime minister.
שמעתי את נפתלי בנט. לצערי הוא שוב מוליך שולל את הציבור.
Right then, we are now joined by Amichai Steen. He's a diplomatic correspondent with Khan TV. He joins us live from Jerusalem. Amichai, firstly, will it be correct assessment to say that Israel's longest-serving leader is about to lose hold, or is it too soon to write Netanyahu off?
First of all, you should never write Netanyahu off. This needs to be the first rule. But I spoke yesterday with senior Likud officials. They are telling me it's hard to see Netanyahu doing anything to prevent this government, meaning it's very hard to prevent the swearing in of this kind of government. Netanyahu will still try in the next week to really pressure these right-wing MPs of Naftali Bennett to try and make them change their mind, not to vote in favor of this government. But it's going to be very hard. This is what Likud officials are telling me. It seems quite game over, like you said, since 2009, Netanyahu was in power, and now it seems the end game for him. But still, you should never write off Netanyahu. He never quits. Yesterday also he gave a speech. He's going still to pressure these MPs. He's still going to fight till the end, but it seems very difficult to twist this event, meaning we are going into a swearing in of a Lapid Bennett government, and Netanyahu, for the first time since 2009 is going to leave the prime minister office. It's probably going to happen sometime next week.
Okay, never say never in the case of Benjamin Netanyahu. That's what Amichai is telling us. But how do you think the dynamics of politics in Israel will change if a wide-ranging coalition of the right-wing, centrist, leftist parties, they take charge? Do you think different ideologies could overpower policies later?
So yesterday, Bennett said this is going to be a favor government, meaning no one will try to do things that the other side in the government opposes. Everyone is going to have a veto. It's going to be split even between the two sides. We probably won't see a disengagement, pulling back of settlements, but we probably won't see also building new settlements. So it's going to be some kind of status quo in this government. But again, we have never seen this such government trying to work, trying to build together something. The only thing that is at this point holding these really wide-ranging opinions from the right to the left is getting Netanyahu out of office. What will happen a day later? This is going to be a very interesting question. But you need to remember maybe one thing. As long as Netanyahu is not going to leave anywhere. Even when he leaves prime minister office, he's still going to stay as the head of the opposition, meaning he's here to stay. We don't know exactly for how much, but he's here to stay because he thinks this government is at some point going to collapse, and then he will be able to come back to be really the, let's say, the messiah of Israeli politics. But this is one thing you need to remember. And the second thing, this is a rotation government. Yair Lapid, who is more from the left side of the government, is supposed to be prime minister in 2 years, meaning he will try to keep as much industrial quiet in this government as he can, because he knows that if he wants to enter the prime minister office in 2 years, he needs this industrial quiet. So we probably might see here a status quo government, meaning not shaking too much on right and left issues, but let's say health, transportation, education, basic issues. But it's still, you need to remember, it's Israel. Every day you've got right and left and issues, and Netanyahu from the opposition is going to really make their time tough, because he will put laws on settlements issues and other right-wing issues, which will cause, of course, crisis in this government.
Okay, interesting that you talk about the issues that he might raise, even if he sits in opposition. One of them, as he's been talking about it right now, is that, he says that it's going to be dangerous for the security of Israel. Now, that's a thing that he's been raising ever since this opposition has crept up. What does this actually mean? Is it a threat from Iran that he's talking about, or there is a bit of politics here, a bit of gamesmanship here?
No, I think this is a campaign tactics. At the end, let's remember, as defense minister sits Benny Gantz, who is right now in Netanyahu's government, the defense minister. Naftali Bennett, who is the prime minister, was the defense minister in another Netanyahu government. So these are guys that Netanyahu himself trusted them with handling Israel's security issues. So to come as Netanyahu claims that this government will cause a collapse in Israel's security feeling, this is quite of a political tactic, because it's the end. When you look at this, 5 out of 7 of the heads of the parties which will form this government sat at one point or another with Netanyahu in the last 10 years. So for Netanyahu to claim that it will cause problems in security or some other kind of problem, hey, Netanyahu was there with them. He entrusted them with Israel's most secure issues. So it seems like a political tactic. I don't think it really will change anything regarding security issues, because we even saw Bennett saying yesterday, if we need to go to operation in Gaza, we will go to an operation in Gaza. Even, you have different opinions. So I don't think you will see huge changes, but it still will be interesting if there will be even little changes in Israel's security perspective maybe regarding Gaza, maybe how to deal with the Palestinian Authority, it will still be very, very interesting to see.
All right, and also as I mentioned earlier in our story, that even if Bennett was to be Prime Minister, he's also taken a hardline stance when it comes to the security of Israel. So not much is going to change in that sense. But as the MHI points out there, that it's a lot of gamesmanship, a lot of politics, a lot of strategizing that is happening from both ends. Fascinating how the politics is playing out in Israel. We're going to have a few interesting days ahead. But for the moment, MHI Stein, thanks so much for joining us. He was talking to us live from Jerusalem.